at Berea College and has been doing all sorts of incredible things. And I just found out also is going to be a visiting professor at Bennington College next year, which is very cool. Um, and yeah, she we're going to be learning so much from her this hour. Um, just wanted to say that you can participate in. Oh, sorry, we are live on YouTube. Um, we you can participate in the chat. You can put your comments in the chat and comments and questions. And if there's a pause, I will pass those along to Kathy. Otherwise, we will make sure we look at all of those at the end. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, you can do the same thing. Put your questions in the chat there, and I will pass them along over here to Kathy as well. So I believe that is everything that I needed to relay to you. So without further ado, oh, no, actually, there's one more thing, which is that I would love to thank our sponsors of this event. We have Davis Nelkins College, the National Endowment for the Arts, the West Virginia Humanities Council, and the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History, as well as all of our wonderful members of this summer series. So now, without any further ado, here is Kathy Bullock.
Oh, woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind straight on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hey everybody, I am so happy to be here. Thank you, Miss Emmy. Thank you all of the great Augusta Heritage Center. I see my friend Flawn. I see other great friends that whose faces that I know. It's just really wonderful to see you. As we talk and share some of the songs coming out of the civil rights movement. That one woke up this morning with my mind. In fact, I know for some of these stories that I will be sharing with you, some of you are very familiar with them, not from me sharing them, but from your own experiences of them. And so I just want to highlight the music that emerged at that time and how this music, you know, really has been a core part to our world, our way of life here in the U.S. Let's do the second verse together. Ain't no problem. Ain't no problem with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Ain't no problem with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Ain't no problem with my mind. Oh no. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Yes, yes, yes. Not too bad to wake up to that, is it? You know, just thinking about that. Okay, let me move to my PowerPoint to share with y'all. And so I wanted to start by, let's see. Are you moving down? Let's see. Oh, there it is. We just did woke up this morning. I wanted to start, I wanted to start with a story about John Lewis, the great Congressman John Lewis, who recently passed on. He, out of Georgia, who really made such an impact on us all with his activism and his work of love and ongoing fight for justice. He came to Berea College while I was there as a music professor, and he was the guest speaker for our graduation ceremony. So I was in charge of the choir that year. We take turns, you know, the choir sings for graduation, about 200 plus students. So I decided to do a medley of songs in honor of him. I was just happy to do it. So he was on stage, the choir was singing behind him, this mass group, and we ended with a great, you know. And so I went to him to shake his hand, and he had tears running down his face saying, "You done me proud, you done me proud. I feel like I can go on a little while longer." I'll tell you, I'll never forget it, ever. And then when he began to do his speech, he started by saying, "Choir, choir, you made me cry today. And he said, the civil rights movement without music is like a bird without wings. And I've never forgotten that. The fact that the music was such a critical component of the story of the gesture. And so that sort of underlines the whole thing of what I'm talking about. So what I want to share with you is just a little bit pictures of background, thinking of African peoples coming to the U.S. There was the emancipation that took place. Then in the civil rights movement, they emerged in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Some of the prominent spirituals that were sung then, a few hymns, and then a few maybe folk songs, and maybe some newly composed. Then during all this story, if you have questions or comments, just let me know. Let me know. I think it would be really interesting. I think you would do this anyway, but looking at parallels between the story in the 60s and today. So we always want to start first with an image of African people that is not in chains and irons, but that shows the gloriousness of this culture that's thousands of years old. People who were the first, not just kings and queens, but first seafarers and agriculturalists and cosmetologists and you name it, the first. And music being a component of all of this. Then as we move to the United States, people who were taken from those shores and who came here, most of them through the institution of slavery. There are others who came as freed folk, but mostly then. Then you have the creation of whiteness in the United States. Didn't really exist before slavery, and this whole institution that underlies what we do. And I always ask the question, if you had hundreds of years of free labor, what could you do? And the answer I have is you could build you a nation. So just think about that whole enslaved things, hundreds of years of free labor of people. But for the people who were involved in it, it was pretty horrendous. So life was awful. You didn't know if you'd be alive the next day. The idea of beatings and burnings and torturings and raping and just daily demeaning things was a reality. And then we had a civil war that rocked the nation apart for those who wanted to continue this institution, primarily, and those who did not. And all of I'm simplifying what was a complex situation, but that is at the core of it. And during all of this time, the people, the black folk sang. They sang. And it was really out of that we get the idea of the spiritual. Okay? So the spiritual, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Everything's gonna be all right. Thousands of songs. I used to say hundreds of spirituals. I just met with a historian friend that said, oh, the latest count is 6,000. 6,000 spirituals. The folk music of the United States. One of America's, U.S.'s first folk music, these spirituals. These songs that came from the people in this community, folks of this shared experience over hundreds of years in the United States. And those spirituals have been sort of the foundation of music in the U.S. as we know it. You know, all of the forms that, popular forms, whether it's blues or jazz, later gospel, contemporary, you know, which is sort of contemporary sacred music, or R&B, or hip hop, you can look back, country and Western, you can look back, rock and roll, you can look back and find spirituals at the core of this music. So out of an horrendous situation comes this music that is so beautiful and powerful and healing that people love it all over the world. Hold that thought, because the spirituals emerged out of the enslavement as a way of expression for it, as a way of communication, all kinds of things. Then we move from that to the next stage. Oh, I didn't know I had the music here, sheet music for that. But then we are now free. We're at 1865. The Civil War has, in over, was it 750,000 people died? It was a whole bunch of folks died, y'all. It split apart. And out of that now there's a new era and a new hope. So that, and it was with black and white people who are fighting for freedom. And it's always been that way. There have always been white people and people of other ethnicities, in addition to people of African descent, who have fought for freedom in this country. So this song, I'm hoping you know it. If you don't, I'm going to sing through a little bit of it. Lift Every Voice and Sing was written right at 1900. And it was after, people are free and black folks are wanting to try to build their homes and their businesses and go into politics and make a life for themselves and their families. There have been inventions that they had done and created during the slavery time that now they get patents for. There's wanting to get just live their lives and be productive citizens. And so at 1900, these two brothers, African American, were at they had to do a program. If you're a musician, you have to do programs for whatever thing comes up or holiday or something. So they got together, and one brother is a poet and later an activist and statesman. The other was a musician, and they wrote the song "Lift Every Voice and Sing." And it was so well loved by all who sung it that it just hit the area like wildfire. And it is now called the Black on Negro National Anthem, because it so much talks about the hope of what's going in the future and honoring those who have gone before us. So as a way of honoring those ancestors and singing forward with this hope, and it's so much an important song that it's been traditional for black folk to stand when it's time to sing it. So if you see that's the reason, because it's so powerful. And so I'm going to go. I just couldn't resist this moment. So I had to do it for a special program. And I'm going to have my son sing it. Can y'all hear? Okay.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty, and our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Woo-wee! I had to stop a few minutes then. Unabashed pride at my youngin', what can I say? But you see the power of that song, True to Our God, True to Our Native Land, the power of that and the hope. It was resonating throughout the land and all of the people. And that song embodies it. That's in 1900. Okay, but now if we've had this slavery for 200, 300 years, one day signing that piece of paper, that ain't gonna hit it, So there was continuous movement on to a place where black folk would be fully equitable. And the reaction against this with things like the Ku Klux Klan and other things, the reaction against having blacks in this position of equity and power was ripe and at the same time. So the lynchings started, the burning down of not just houses, but whole communities, the bombing of so there was ongoing fight still taking place. And so now let's move up to the 1940s because, and there was some legislation. There had been some things that were signed with the Constitution, but there was no way to implement them so that people could vote. So what was on paper wasn't the reality. So now in the around 1955 especially, we have one incident that jars the nation and the world, and that is the murder of Emmett Till. In 1955 in August, when this young black boy goes down to visit his family in the South. And while there, it said he whistled to a white woman as she was coming out of a store in a dare with his friends. And that because of that, later he was killed. It turns out later that woman has since said that she made up the story. It didn't happen. She has since said that. But at the time, she did the white folks were enraged, particularly the white men in this community. They went to the home of the grandfather, uncle of the boy, took him out and brutally beat him, and killed him. Now, this was a child. His mother, when she came down from North for the funeral, she said, I want to have the body where everybody could see it. I want them to see the brutality of this. And it rocked the nation. And not just that, but the world. In many ways, it was like a George Floyd moment. That's where I would look at it, a George Floyd moment. We had the pandemic, so our attention was all based there, but just watching brutally somebody, watching be killed, and what that did. So it continued to help galvanize what was already going on. And so we call that time period, 40s through 60s, civil rights movement, because there was this galvanizing of organizations like the Southern Christian Leadership Organization and others to come together and try to make a difference. Segregation was alive and well, where blacks could not, particularly in the South, but really not only there. So if folks they could pay the same money, blacks, but they couldn't not go into the front of the store. They might have to go into the back door if they went at all, or the doctor's office. And if there was something, if it was time for them to eat anything, then they couldn't go into the restaurant in the same place. So let me go back to my okay, I want to go to the next one. Hey, are you sending me to the next one? There it is. So we talk about this organized effort to end racial discrimination. And so here's an example of the water fountains where there would be white only and black only colors. And the colors was always in bad condition, sometimes broken down, nasty. And so it was demeaning to live life in this way as a person of color. One of the first that we hear about was with Rosa Parks decided to sit on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama. And this happened later on in the same year that Emmett Till had died. Okay? And so now these people said, they brought in this young whippersnapper called Martin Luther King and had together with other young folks, they put together this organization, a coalition of folks saying, let's just start here. And there were other things going on, but they said, let's start here. And demand that we can stay on the bus and ride anywhere we want to because we pay the same money as black people. So, and if they won't allow us to do that, we won't use the bus because most of the people using the bus are black folk. Easy, right? So they said, well, maybe after a couple of days of the week of this losing this revenue, they'll just change. Not. It took a year. It took 1 year. But black folks were every day, instead of taking the bus, they would walk to work, they would carpool. Some of their employees, some of the women, white women, would pick up their help because they said, shoot, I need my person here to work with me. So there was, but they stopped using the buses. And during that time, there would be every night big meetings that would be held. And in these meetings, they would inform the folk and they would be encouraged. And it was at this meeting that King and others said, do you want to continue? They said, as long as it takes. And the people would rally for hours. And what would they be doing besides listening to the uplifting words? They would be singing. Here is an example taken directly from one of those meetings. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free and be no segregation, no segregation, no segregation, no segregation over me, over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Now, just think about it. Think about hundreds and hundreds of people in this space. And there were these singing songs like this all night. Now, they needed to have people to lead the songs. So when they picked some folks and they were trying to figure out what to sing, they said, we'll just sing the songs we already know because they work. So they took those old spirituals that now were part of their worship activities and heard in schools or whatever, and they just sang those because the message was still the same about freedom and about moving forward, about honoring self and community. Sometimes they shifted the words. Sometimes they didn't have to shift a thing. This is one example. So these songs then became known as freedom songs because their use was particularly to help in people collecting together, communing together, inspired. And Dr. Bernice Reagan talks about when people would be marching down the streets to protest in peaceful marches, and the police in the area would set the dogs on them or set fire hoses, which the pressure was so harsh it could peel off your skin, or they would beat them or put them in jail. People would sing, and singing changes your condition and changes the space around you is what Dr. Reagan would talk about. She was one of the founders and a freedom singer, founders of Sweet Honey. So here's an example of all these songs that are all spirituals that just was sung and they changed the words on them. How many, do you know all of them? How many do you know? I'm looking at some of y'all nodded. I know y'all know these songs. We're gonna go through and sing and, we'll come back to them. But then there would be things like the Arkansas Little Nine that happened in 1957, where they were trying to integrate a school in Little Rock, Arkansas. And it was so much pressure. This little girl, she was one of the 9 students that was selected to go into the school that was all white, which was closer to them because by law, they should be able to go to what school they wanted. But the crowd behind was so rude and so cruel, they had to have federal people to come down, federal guards to come and walk this baby to school. Because there was, in fact, after the first day, they had to make sure to have something else for the crowd to look at while they whisked the kids away because they were afraid they would have been killed for wanting to go to school, just wanted to sit in class. So what did they do? The people sang, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And just keep on walking, keep on talking, walking up freedom's way. So the original spiritual, it would be, don't you let nobody turn me around, walk the straight and the narrow way. So they just shifted it using the music as they needed it, which is what folks have been doing, folk traditions all over the world forever and ever, you know. So, and they would sing on segregation and Jim Crow. There were times that there were these organized efforts going on in specific places around the country. And in 1961, we had the Freedom Riders who were coming from the North because, you know, riding on the buses, they were not segregated. You had to sit, and these were white and black people who decided we're going to ride together on the Greyhound buses down into these communities as a symbol of what things should be, being able to ride together in the bus. And so on this particular ride down, the bus was bombed and burned. There's a picture of one of these young men who is attacked by a dog, and this I think ended up on the New York Times, and I think this particular picture won a prize for it. When being attacked by the dogs, the images of what's happening. What does it take to be free? And throughout the whole time, the people sang, and one of the songs that was used was this hymn. If you miss me down here, come on up to bright heaven. Come on up, I'll be singing up there. And they changed the song too. If you miss me at the back of the bus and you can't find me nowhere, come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be sitting right there. I hope you're joining me in singing. I'll be sitting right there. I'll be sitting right there. Come on up to the front of the bus. I'll be sitting right there. Next one says, if you miss me at the Mississippi River and you can't find me nowhere, come on over to the swimming pool. I'll be swimming over there. Oh, I'll be swimming over there. I'll be swimming over there. Come on over to the swimming pool. I'll be swimming over there. Again, integration of the swimming pools where only whites were allowed to swim. I mean, there are cases of white people pouring bleach into the pool while the black child was in there because they didn't want to have any black people to be involved. But look at the verse on the second line that says, if you miss me in the cotton fields. If you miss me at the cotton fields and you can't find me nowhere, come on down to the courthouse. I'll be voting right there. Oh yes, I'll be voting right there. I'll be voting right there. Come on up down to the courthouse. I'll be voting right there. Yes, 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 yes. And so the urge for the right to vote, and to vote fairly, again, just recalls me back to our present day and the challenges that we face with these things that people fought so sorely to get. So you notice people's mouths open because they're singing as they're walking and they're marching throughout, whether it's the men who are picketing the laborers for better pay, or whatever the situation was all over the country, these coordinated efforts were taking place. And so here are a few other songs that I'll have you sing with me. Then I'll sing some, have us bring some songs that are not spirituals, but also came out of this. There's a whole, in fact, y'all, I end up doing a whole class called The Music of the Civil Rights Movement. And what happened is, for my last class, before I was going to retire in, it seems so long ago, I think it was last year. No, wait a minute, last year. Yes, no, hey, listen, I can't even tell you. But anyway, in May I had my, yes, it was last year, because May, I had prided myself on never doing anything on the internet. You know, I'm a people person, you know, and I'm so proud of it. And then COVID hits, and for my final class for the school, I had to do an online course. So I ended up doing the music of the civil rights movement, where our text was the video series Eyes on the Prize. That was our text. So daily for each class, we would watch episodes from this. It's about 10 to 15 episodes of this documentary that takes us through this journey and the various people. And then we sang the songs that emerged during that time and shared the stories. Now listen, this happened in May last year, right around the time when all this stuff was happening with Floyd and all this. So I would go off watching these things happen on TV from the 60s, 40s, and 50s, and then I would turn on the TV here in the now and see these incidents of black men who were being killed and shot. And I thought I wasn't going to make it through this class because it was so traumatic to not think that we're done with that. We're in a new world. In some ways we have, and in other ways we haven't. But for our students, they found it really eye-opening. They thought it was very timely and engaged by it as they were all over the country. So we sang, y'all. Sing with me. You can just say the certainly if you want to. Have you been to the jail? Certainly, Lord. Have you been to the jail? Certainly, Lord. Have you been to the jail? Certainly, Lord. Certainly, 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 Lord. Did they give you 30 days? Certainly, Lord. Did they give you 30 days? Certainly, Lord. Did you give you 30 days? Certainly, Lord. Certainly, 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 Lord. Because often when they would protest, carted all off to jail, and they'd be singing all night in jail. Even the young people were marching, even the children, because the parents had to work so they would have food, and the young people saw it and wanted to be a part of it. So there's a part where the children marched, and they sang all night long. Then they sang, get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children. Let's fight for human rights. Oh, get on board, children, children. Oh, get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children. Let's fight for men, for human rights. And they might sing this song, which was the theme for the TV series. Paul and Silas bound in jail. I had no money for to go their bail. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Then we have go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Paul and Silas bound in jail, let my people go. They had no money, turned to buy the bail. Oh, let my people go. And one of the biggest, loudest, most powerful voices we heard during this time was that of Fannie Lou Hamer, black woman from Mississippi, who said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and was determined to work and make it possible for her people to vote. So all of the barriers that were placed for her, her land was taken from her, her home, her car, her vehicle. At one point, when she was in training to be a nonviolent protest organizer, she ended up in jail and beaten so severely that she had a life damaging, well, not life damaging, but things that were there with the rest of her life, the wounds from the beatings. And there was the constant diminishing, but she was able to form a caucus that went to the Democratic Party, and her voice was heard all over the nation. And Go Tell It on the Mountains was one that people would hear Fannie Lou Hamer singing. along with This Little Light of Mine. So here's another one that was sung. I'm gonna be a registered voter. I'm gonna be a registered voter. Oh, I'm gonna be a registered voter one of these days. Hallelujah. I'm gonna be a registered voter. I'm going to be a registered voter one of these days. That's taken from the song I'm Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table. Some of you might know these songs. And there's so many more. I'm just moving on. And we did woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom, and we shall not be moved. Walk with me. And I can come back to sing any of them if you want. I just want to make sure to just add a few other styles of singing and pause for any questions. And if there's anything that's come up, any observations or questions, Emily, so far, I can pause.
Most people are commenting on how wonderful things are, but there aren't any questions currently.
Oh, wonderful, darlings, wonderful. Thank you very much, very much. Let's look at this one. I love this Calypso song. Freedom is taken from the Banana Boat song, which was a work song done in the Caribbean when they would be picking the bananas all night, the Caribbean folk, and then they would go to the ships, and in the morning they would take those banana bunches and they would get paid by, they would count the tally man would count them and then give them their pay. So they come and me one go home. Well, they took it and changed the words. Freedom, freedom, freedom's coming, it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, freedom's coming and it won't be long. I took a trip on the Greyhound bus. Freedom coming, it won't be long. Well, to fight segregation, cause of this we must. Freedom coming, we wanna go home. Second, Jordan River is chilly and cold. Freedom coming, it won't be long. Well, it chills my body, but not my soul. Freedom coming, me one go home. The chorus. Freedom, freedom, freedom coming, it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, freedom coming, it won't be. I ain't been to heaven, but I think I'm right. Freedom coming, it won't be. When the people in heaven are neither black or white. Freedom coming, it won't be long. I ain't been to heaven, but I've been told. Freedom coming, it won't be long. Well, up in heaven is no Jim Crow. Freedom coming, it won't be long. Oh, freedom, freedom, freedom coming, it won't be long. Freedom, freedom, freedom's coming, it won't be long. Freedom coming, it won't be long. Yeah, man, the freedom is a coming. Ooh, I love that song. I love that song. It has so much energy when we do it. Now I want to pause and looking at the March on Washington in 1963. Now, I was alive at that point, but barely a babe is what I like to say when my students would talk about it, even though I was, my dad, who was really involved he was a Baptist minister in Washington, D.C., and very much a part of the civil rights movement all our lives. I thought everybody did this, meetings and voting and all. And so he was a marshal at this parade. Our church was one of the places that people met and made signs to take down to the Capitol. It was just very intricately about. People came. This one article said it was 250,000 people to take part in this march in Washington for jobs and freedom. This is when Dr. Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. And of course, there would have been singing at this place as people were even making their way there. Just look at the people that were, I don't know if you can hear. this one just is giving you a sense of this, the energy and the excitement, but there was singing. They were going on as people made their way to this place in Washington, D.C. from all parts of the country, particularly from the South, walking, whatever they were riding in, they made it here. And at this, one thing I looked at was what happened at the program there. It was so many more people than they thought. They were supposed to start the program here, but people were still negotiating because John Lewis wanted to, as a young whippersnapper, he wanted things to be in his comments, but they didn't look that flattering to John Kennedy. So others wanted him to, moderate it, and so they were negotiating all that on the side. The people were all there ready for it to start. It was just a lot going on, as you might imagine. And so some of the people who sang on this program I found were particularly the freedom singers. It's Bernice Reagan and whatever. And here's a little sample of what they sang there. Yes, and that wasn't the only one. I want us to move to Mahalia Jackson, who was a gospel singer and had been supportive of Martin Luther King, John Kennedy, and others all of her adult life as a singer of many continents of the world, and brought gospel to this new awareness. So gospel, which would be today's spiritual, is much more contemporary, wider vocal range and harmonic ranges, and she was fire. And so she sang this at that same these are people going up to the stage. There's Portier, all the dignitaries. Let's get to her.
How we made it over. Tell me how we got over. Lord, Lord, Lord. We had a mighty hard time coming on over. You know my soul. Look, I can wonder how did I make it over? Well, soon as I could see Jesus, the man that died for me, man that led and suffered, you know he hung on Calvary. And I've got to thank him for how he taught me. And thank God for how he taught me. Thank God for how he kept me. Oh, I'm going to thank him for shepherd.
So Mahalia was singing. I don't know how they got the organ out there, because they had sound like a Hammond organ out there, and that was a feat within itself. Lon is nodding, to have that, but they did, because can you feel the difference now for the gospel song, which was written again about freedom, about life, about celebrating the joy of being alive, about your faith, and about connections with God, continuing. But it would be today's story rather than the spiritual. So actually this information from the slides will be available if you let me know. I'll be happy to forward it on. Another distinctive voice or voices that were heard at that march would be these three, Peter, Paul, and Mary. So this song was written by Bob Dylan in 1962, but released in 63 when this march took place. And so these three sang the song, "The Answer, My Friend, is Blowing in the Wind."
Relationship.
And now, a group of singers who have come to help express in song what this great meeting is all about. I give you now Peter, Paul, and Mary.
I started to sing, and I had an epiphany, looking out at this 250,000 people. And I truly believed at that moment it was possible that human beings could join together to make a positive social change.
How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Yes, yes, yes. How many of you already know that song? I would think most of you, like me, know that one as well. And so all of the voices coming together at this time.
Relationship.
And now,
I didn't mean to go on. There were other folk songs that were going on, ballads, a ballad about Medgar Evers, who was assassinated, really. Or if I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer all over this world. Sam Cooke talked about a change is gonna come, a soulful rendition of it. In R&B, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, Starola. The jazz composers did things like Alabama, which was a jazz, eerily powerful jazz composition that John Coltrane wrote after the killing of the 4 children when they were at church, in the restroom at church, and the building was bombed. And so they, and then Nina Simone sang, I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. So I'm going to pause here because I'll sing any one of these songs we want to go through. We Shall Overcome is another one to close with, but I'll pause for questions or comments you have now as we go through. And this was easily enough material for me to do my class with no question, and ending up with the students coming with their own freedom songs for today, or songs about justice and equity. And so the journey goes on. The story, the fight continues, and the power is there.
Yeah. Flan had some interesting comments he put in the chat. I don't know if Flan, if you wanted to unmute and give any of that verbally too.
Well, people can look at it in the chat, but I got to teach a course covering some of this same material, and one of the little bits of trivia I turned up about the 1963 march was that Bayard Rustin, who was on the organizing committee, had convinced them that they needed a better than average for the time sound system because they were expecting so many people. But the night before the event, the sound system was sabotaged, and the commercial operators said they were unable to repair it. And Walter Fauntleroy, who was a DC pastor and a civil rights organizer, contacted RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, who was Attorney General at the time, and pushed to get the government to fix the sound system, saying that there could be violence the next day otherwise. And the Army Corps of Engineers rebuilt it, the Army Signal Corps rebuilt it overnight, and so the program went forward.
Wow!
But they had a full grand Steinway. I don't know if it was a Steinway actually, but a full grand piano on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, as well as that Hammond B3 organ.
They did have everything. Well,
with
you know,
double
Marian
Leslie
Anderson
cabinets
sang
that
too.
you were talking about there.
Yes, Marian Anderson, opera singer, she sang as well, and
Well,
so it makes sense they would have that grand piano. Oh, look at here! I did not know that, Flan.
I had just moved to Washington in the summer of '63. My father was in the Army, and so we were living at Fort McNair, only about 2 miles from Lincoln Memorial. And we did not go to the march, but we sat and looked at a parade ground full of helicopters that were on standby in case there was trouble downtown.
Wow. Fascinating. I knew that there's so much information that you share and have experienced. Thank you for that. I've got that one. I'm going to continue. Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, but you never know. Just think about it now. It's about 250,000 people. This was not the normal back in 1963, when they were still stringing up black folk for things that they did. But they marched, they were determined, and they had some assurances from the president and from vice president, even though they were like, but there was some assurances, and there was some, and oh my goodness. And it almost didn't happen in that with the John Lewis as a young one really wanting to state his opinions and didn't want it to be filtered in any way. But the older power that be wanted the thing to go on. And so they, I think it was King and those elders that pleaded with John Lewis, just for this one, would you please allow us to be a little bit toned down from what you're going to say and not criticize so much, the Kennedy administration and all that, would you please? And so he finally relented for the sake of having the thing go together, but after that, not much more. And I agree, somebody said another thing, Bayard Rustin, who is not talked about enough for his contributions, the organizing, the powerful things that he did to help make this possible. And there were women also, besides Fannie Lou Hamer, who were part of the organizing, people like Ella Baker, who was not only an organizer, but really talked with the youngins as well as helping to guide and support them in this movement.
But women were notably absent from the speaking dais at the event.
I'm sorry?
There was very little visibility of women at the podium, at the dais of the event.
Oh, absolutely.
Most of the ones who were there were singers: Mahalia
Yes.
Jackson, Joan Baez, Peter
Yes.
Paul and Mary, the
Yes.
Freedom Singers.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The women were not, yes, they were absent at that time from being the singing part of the culture there, which still continues to a degree. But, I dare say now we would have many more powerful women whose voices would be heard and would be sung. It's not that they didn't have powerful voices, but they were not those that were invited to speak at this big convention, not convention, this big gathering. They absolutely flawed. No question. Any other observations? Or you got some more fun for us? Others? Where were you when this happened? Emily, you were not born yet, were you? She looks so young to you.
Nope, not born yet.
Like my son. Let's see. The rest of you? Other questions? Thoughts? No.
I had never heard that I'm going to be a registered voter song. I love that. I love that reworking of
I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It took whatever they needed, Emily, and just made the songs work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cindy, I think you want to say something.
Yeah, I have a question, Kathy, and this is actually something that's crossed my mind a number of times when I've heard presentations or talked about this music. So what I wonder is about the religious roots of the songs. They took these songs that were religious, but it wasn't really their religion. It was a transplanted religion. And I'm wondering how that became the music of the people when it wasn't originally the music of the people.
Hi. The reason why I'm sorry, I was on mute, but I heard your question. The music, they certainly saw it as theirs, the spiritual. Certainly, it was their music. It was their experience. You can look at it. I look at it as a fusion of the music, the words, and many of the tunes that would be European or Western, but in the ways in which they were performed, and some of the tunes and the terminology. It reflected the people's experiences in their heart. And this was the tool that it was created here by these people of African descent. So over hundreds of years, this music was created. And the concept of Christianity, The concept, well,
That's
of
what I
one
was wondering about most. Yeah.
the concept of one creator has always been a part of traditional African worldview, as far as I can see. And my scholars are telling me the concept that there is one creator, and then there may be other spiritual beings. So that was not something new that people on this boat would bring with them, their understanding of their life in communal way under God. So transferring that to looking at God in the Christian way in the United States happened with some adaptations. And all black folk didn't agree with that, and it's a white man's God. But for others, the idea of God was bigger than black and white, and it's holding on to that faith is what kept them alive and kept them moving forward because of the faith and spirit, which is historically a part of their lives. So to have then music and it was sort of an adaptation and adjustment. I would look at it that way. Taking these songs so very clearly, these people heard the songs. These people being my folk, when I think of all the family, all the places I've been, they see this as their own because African American could not have happened anywhere else but here. It's only happening here. This fusion of all of these things, and the music reflects that, I think. So absolutely, there was taking Christianity. However, all of it was not adapted in the same way. So the white slave owners might talk about, master obeying your slaves obeying your master and those kinds of things. But for black people, often the ones that they loved would be Moses escaping from the Red Sea and Joshua who fought the battle, taking those images. So there was this idea of an adaptation of the stories, powerful stories, and a continuation of the faith and hope within the music. So for me, when I think of, and it's ongoing discussion about that, but it was for that reason. And this was music that everybody knew, whether you were at the church or not. You knew because the idea of the sacred and secular, it's not like a line sacred over here, secular over that in the African worldview. And that also happened. You might be singing these songs anywhere. They were done in church, but they could be done anywhere else. And it was like an umbrella. Everybody was invited, even if you didn't like them, even if they did something, their actions in life, whether they were gay or straight. I don't even know if they use how they, but that's another story. That's another story. But absolutely, all the people, your cousin, your brother, we're all family, and that's the concept.
Well, and it occurred. It occurred to me to wonder, all the changes in the words to be the freedom songs, if you will, rather than the church songs. To a certain extent, it seemed to me kind of a in your face sort of a move to say, oh, we're going to take these religious songs that were essentially forced, the concepts of the white God were forced on us, blah blah blah, all that other stuff, and we're going to turn it into our freedom stuff.
Well, even by making them spirituals, they were already turned into something that was a freedom song, already. The fact that it was a spiritual and they talked about life and freedom, that piece was already done. So it's natural for these to use the same songs and use them for the current kind of freedom when it had been freedom all along, So I don't see a separate, the religious ones here and freedom here. I see the same songs and it was the church people that were leading this, the Christian folk. It was the same folks. And do you see what I'm saying? So I didn't see as much of a separation between, but a natural sort of progression. So they were.
Kathy,
Yes, Sarah.
can I just ask one thing? Do you see that this generation, this younger generation, taking on the music? Because for me, what I remember most is the music. I was at some of these big marches, not this one, but I was at the next one. And there's so much violence in the current, what's going on with the police and with the young people. The music seems to me like it would be vital.
Well, Sarah, someone had asked me that. Are the songs, are people singing now? There is a lot of music going on. It's not in the same avenues and same spaces in the same way. The church, which was the center of community at that time. It's not so much now. There are many other ways and spaces in which people are singing. Online, there's a lot of internet. In fact, there's some whole websites where young people get together just to write songs and sing and share songs. In avenues like rap and hip hop, there are people that are sharing stories about freedom. There are workshops going on. So there is a brimming kind of life, but it's not in the same way or utilized in the same way as it had been before. So music making, creating music, I hear that happening a lot. In fact, I've been trying to write down some things as the youngins will be telling me about what that looks like. Because I went to the march, when the women were marching right early on, and I went to Lexington. I said, I couldn't make it to D.C. I was in Kentucky. I would have been right there. So I said, I'm going to Lexington, and I hope that something's happening there beside me. And there were over 1,000 women. I was so proud. I was so proud of my people in Lexington. And I was marching, and it was quiet. And I said, where's the singing? What's wrong? What y'all singing? And so, of course, me being there, I had to start singing something. And of course, as soon as I started, then they all joined in, and there was a group of young ones right in front of me, and they took it from me. They started singing and singing throughout. They took it from me and went on. I mean, so
Yeah,
it's.
I think that's what it means.
They would chant or something, but they didn't. That was not. And then another time when I was here in Berea, and I was, they had a protest downtown, and they asked me to be a guest. To say something. I don't know why they got me to say something, because I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sing. So, or have everybody else to sing. So I did. And I started with an up-tempo song, Ain't No Stopping Us Now. We're on the move. I'm thinking that's young people would, and some of them were like, eh. But then I went and sang Woke Up This Morning or something like that. And I heard over the entire community, everybody started to sing. The elders, the young people stopped. The singing continued. So it made me think, well, I guess it's not outdated after all. And this idea of singing, but there's a different age and a different way of expression. I grew up singing. There was music all the time, whether I'm in classes, in the auditorium for assembly, of course in the churches. Whenever there was a program, it was singing all the time. But that's not necessarily the case now. Young people. So my roundabout answer is that there's music coming, but in different venues and formats, and it's yet to be seen. Didn't mean to go on and on, because y'all might have something else. We've run out of time. It's after time. It's 5:04. Oh,
Yes,
no.
I think we do have to wrap it up, but Kathy, it has been so wonderful. What a fantastic presentation, and I really look forward to having you back on campus in Elkins in person. And we can do singing together. We should probably just have you do this whole presentation again, so we can sing it all together.
Got a bunch of them. I'm sure you do too. You have a bunch of them too. But I think that people need to be writing songs also from our generation as we see them. I mean, it's something cathartic and healing about the song, the singing of them, and singing together in community. And empowering in that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Of course, Augusta, we feel very fortunate that you've been part of our Augusta 2021. Please do go and watch and take Kathy's pre-recorded class on African music. It's really, really wonderful, with a whole PowerPoint that goes along with that. That'll teach you a lot. It's great class.
Thank you, Emily.
Yes.
And look at her little baby Angus. Okay, I'm sorry. I just get so excited. And Cindy, I would love to follow up with you more, because I have all these thoughts bumbling up. We should talk more, and it helps me, because those are questions and challenges that are ongoing, not just then. And anybody else who would like to give me an email. I think I'm on the email or something. I don't really know. I think you can reach me through that. If not, through Emily, certainly, and through Augusta Heritage Center. And it's time to go, y'all. I got to say bye, Ellen and Sarah and Judith. Thank you, Cindy and Barbara and Joan and Helen and Valerie and Mike and Nancy and Kim Caps, and of course the great Flan. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Yes, and everybody watching on
Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome today.
Thank you so much. I'm going to end the meeting.
Bye.